Okay. So I love the fact that this is a theme across the world, and I love the fact that if you went and watched other ones, I think you're going to find there's different things taken out. I think that's really special. I thought I'd start with a quick introduction for me. I will try and shift around to help people see the slides, because anywhere I stand, I'm going to be blocking it. No, you can't see it, Pete, you're not allowed. But actually, the slides aren't super key, so don't worry too much from that perspective. I'm a regular here. I've been coming for about a year. I love Creative Mornings. I love everything about it. Yeah. I love everything about it. So, it's always a pleasure to come along, and it's lovely to come up here and share my thoughts on something. For those that don't know me, I'm a coach, and I work with my wife, Liz, at the back, hiding, no, at the back. And together we create spaces and we bring expertise to help people thrive in their work and therefore hopefully their lives. So that's the key stuff that we work on and we do. We do that, I'm going to be very brief, we do that through having an online business community, we do that through having, Ella is here today. Where's Ella? I can't see Ella. Ella, yay, hello. Come up from Leicester to come and join in. So thanks for coming and supporting, it's always appreciated. So we have an online business community, we have masterminds and accelerate programs, but the main thing is we have something to help you wherever you are in your journey and whatever budget you have to do that with, because we're all about thriving in your work. Okay. One other piece of admin I just want to cover is there's a handout on the table for you. Maybe don't read the bullet points on the back just yet. Hashtag spoiler. It's all right if you do, it doesn't matter, it's not the end of the world. But there's a little bit of information about me. There's somewhere to write some notes. If you want to scribble some notes down, there's a bit on there. And the main thing is there's two key themes I'm going to be talking around, and it's hopefully a nice reminder that you can walk away with something to remind you about some of the points. So it'll make more sense later on, but it is there for you. The other thing is you should all have a coin, hopefully, a 10p piece. If you don't, if you raise your hand, Hannah will bring one over to you. Does Yvonne not have one? Okay, so Hannah will bring one round. If you don't have one, put your hand up and I'll come around. Okay, admin over. Let's get into this. So we'll be serious. So it's about half an hour. So it shouldn't be super long, and I will keep going and power through. There's time at the end for some questions. So if you have any, scribble them down. Let's discuss them at the end. And Liz is making the excellent point, which I totally and utterly missed. So I've got to give a shout out to the Creative Mornings. One of the Creative Mornings sponsors, which is Yvonne. Can you stand up, Yvonne? So, yay! Woo, woo, woo. But a shout out for the sponsor doesn't work without knowing who Yvonne is and what she does. So Essential Print Services, yes? Essential Print Services have done the printing for the postcards, and they support and encourage lots of stuff around Creative Mornings Derby, and they are fantastic for that. So huge thanks to Yvonne for sorting it all out, for the speedy turnaround, for putting up with me, and all those sort of things, all greatly appreciated. But so please give her your thanks for those. That's what Liz was trying to wave at me for, and now I understand. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll jump in, we'll get in. First question is, what does endurance mean to you? And I was asking a few people beforehand what endurance means, and I got some nice difference, actually, some nice differing things of what it might mean. I think the key in all of that was about getting to the end, about achieving something and getting somewhere. And that the journey to get us there can have ups and downs, okay? What I often think about in endurance is, well, what comes to my mind when I think of endurance? 5-hour tennis matches. Anyone watch one of those, like in Wimbledon? When they're in the fifth set and they're hitting another tie-break thing and they're slow picking up the ball and they're knackered. And then they get really noisy, don't they? Please just lose. Please let me win. And they just keep, and it's this like, I've just got to keep going. I've got to keep going. I'm a big Tour de France fan. I would never be able to survive on a bike that long. But what they do is they spend 3 weeks doing like 6 hours a day on a bike with just a couple of rest days. And they push through, and it's about the limits of human suffering in reality, but it's how hard they can push their bodies and their minds and their emotional states to carry them through. I think of marathon runners and the wall. Has anyone heard of the wall? That idea of punching through the wall. They don't ever say, you get to the wall and tap it over, do they? Punch your way through the wall. That sounds really hard. It sounds painful, right? And people do this and they push through. We've got a triathlete lady in the room who also is a triathlete coach, Kelly, who's also a marketing person, a great marketing person too. And people push themselves, don't they? They push themselves to do this, to have that goal at the end. Well, here's the thing. All of that suffering, all of that sort of I've got to go through the lows and I've got to push my way back through. From a business side, what if we could change that? What if we could reframe that? So actually, we don't have to have some difficulty. We can just glide our way through to the end. And that's what I want us to explore. How do we do that? Because I know we can. It sounds a bit mythical, I reckon, at times. But I know we can, so how do we do that? And we're going to talk about it. We're going to explore. Does that sound fun? Sound like a good thing to explore? Excellent. Not about suffering and pain. It's about gliding to get to the end result. That's what we're going to look at and do. I want to bring this guy in. I'm going to wander over this side for a second. This is my brother. He's my older brother. He's Rich Cole. And he, for fun, runs 60 miles. In one go, yeah, 60 miles. I consider him an endurance athlete. He considers himself an IT consultant, because that's what he does. And he likes going for a run. I think that's really cool. I'm glad that he goes for a run. While he's out and about, well, we talk a lot, and we're very close. I'm very lucky in that way. And so he'll be out. He'll phone me, and I just get this noise, okay? And he's totally, what's the opposite of out of breath? He's totally in breath. He's just talking normally. I'm probably more out of breath doing this. And he's sort of talking normally, and I'm, mate, what's that noise? I'm just running. Because to train for 60 miles, you just run. You just run for hours a day. So he runs 90 minutes, 2 hours on a regular basis, just because that's what you do, right? Mike? Yeah, mate? You buy your computer? Yeah. I'm a bit lost. I'm in London, and I've got this street and this street. How do I get back to Kew Gardens? Genuine conversation. I help him find some directions. Oh, cheers, mate. Anyway, as we were saying, and that's what he does. So he just does it. Some of the really key things in there is about pace and about perseverance. Okay. Now, I'm going to mainly talk about perseverance, because that's where I really want to flip it on its head. But I just want to touch on pace for a moment first. You see, to do 60 miles, he doesn't do it quickly. He does it much faster than I can. But he can possibly do it faster than I can cycle 60 miles because of the breaks that I would want. But that's it. He just keeps going. That's the reality. He knows when he's going to have his breaks, his pauses. He knows there's fueling, the food, the water he's going to have. He knows how he's going to pace. So part of it is going, how do we find the right balance in our work to pace what we do? In our online community, we spend, every month, we have a planning session, and we look at what are we doing in the weeks ahead, and what's the right pace for us to find? And part of that is to look back and go, well, this is how I have done. Am I happy that's right? Personally, I'm a big fan, metaphorically, of a gentle jog. So not a sprint, not I'm knackered, I've got to lie down, and I'm burning out, or I've overdone it. But what if I had a gentle jog that gets me somewhere, sort of purposefully? I love that about pace. So if we can find that for our work, I think that's a good thing. But the other thing you have to do, if you run that far, the other thing you need, probably a sports massage, and Bet Kelly's all over this stuff. You know, you've got to look after your body. You've got to rest. But you don't just chill out in front of the sofa. You don't run that far, get home, sit in front of the sofa and put on a program and be like, oh, phew. Because your body's going to really, you're going to suffer. And we need to do the same. We need to proactively rest. When we rest, we need to proactively rest. We need to factor in stuff that makes us feel better. That might be watching our favorite TV show, but it could be going and meeting friends in the pub, or going out for dinner, or going for a walk, or taking our dog out, or meeting other dog owners and doing something fun. Or it could be going to the spa. It could be going for a swim. Whatever it is, we need to actively put stuff in that helps us rest. Does that make sense? That's me done on pace. I don't think that's massively surprising. So this isn't radically different. I want to get into the perseverance bit, because I think that's more radical. As I get into that, I want to just continue with my brother just for a moment. So he's a runner. I think if you run 60 miles, you count yourself as a runner, yeah? He moves. I'm glad lots of people said yes. It's quite important. He moves house, moves to a different place, and he thinks, I'd like to go and meet some people. Oh, well, let's go meet some people with my hobby. I'll join a running club. What a great idea. So he joins a running club, and they say, do you run? And he goes, yes, but I'm slow. I'm a slow runner. And they're like, it's fine. All's welcome. We're all good. Lots of places say that. Not many are like Creative Mornings Derby that actually genuinely mean it. Everyone is welcome. And So he joins, they go for a run, he gets left behind. To start with, people stay back with him, and then they get bored, and so they just leave him. And they stop marking the route, and so he's basically just on his own for a run for a while, does 5 miles, gets back to the pub, and goes, what was going on? And these guys say to him, dude, I thought you said you were a runner. It's like, ow, I think that knife's yours, mate. What a comment. What a nasty comment that we get hit with. And again, in reality, for us, in our business and in our lives, we get people throw these kind of knives at us all the time. I thought you said you're good at marketing. I'm going to deliberately not look at anyone for this, okay? I thought you said, no, there is someone over there. I thought you said you were good at marketing. But why can't you get clients? You know, how many marketers have heard that? How many people that help other people organize feel that they're not organized themselves? You know, we get challenges thrown back at us. So how do we not let those drag us down and instead bounce back? And that's where I want to look at this resilience idea. And to do that, you should all have a coin at 10 pp's. Everyone should have a coin. If you'd like to get your coin, can I do a quick check? Favorite side of your coin, is it a heads or a tails? Can we do a little vote? Can we do a vote for heads? So do you want to raise your hands if it's heads? Fantastic. I'll do that as well. Yeah, okay. So we've got heads. Tails. Excellent. I'm going to do ambivalent, but does it mean the side? No, ambivalent. Ambivalent. Anyone ambivalent? You know? Yeah, okay. All right. For the purposes... That is also okay. So this 10p, what's your favourite side?
This 10. I like the tails because it's a partial one, so it's part of the whole.
Tails it is.
It has friends.
Excellent. That's good. Right. There is no right or wrong answer. I just want you to pick a side. So if you guys could pick a side, again, I don't mind. Just pick one that's foul. See, the thing about our coin is your favourite side. I want you to think of that as your strengths, okay? And I want you to think about, so mine's tails, by the way, I love tails, just because they're different. There's more variation, variety in them. So if my tail side, if that's my favorite, if that's my strength, okay, that's what makes me special. That's the reason why people come to me for help. That's the reason that my friends like me. That's the reason that I enjoy what I do, whether that's at work or at home, okay? My tails has all sorts of stuff that I find difficult and struggle and I don't like about, okay? The thing is, with a coin, I can get a file, a metal file, and this might be illegal, so I'm not going to do this, but I can get a metal file and I can file down the coin as much as I like to try and make it all, to get rid of that side. But the more I file that down, am I getting rid of the side? I'm just changing how it looks. It's still there. I still have two sides to my coin. There are still things that are inherently connected between the strengths of my coin and the weakness of my coin. I have no bar presence. If I go up to a bar and try and get a drink, I just get ignored. It's amazing, right? But that's why I normally get someone else to get me my drinks. Nothing about money. But if I get talking to somebody, normally we get into deep conversations pretty quickly. There's a trust thing. It's non-threatening. And they're actually the same thing. The same reason why I have no bar presence is part of how people come and connect with me and get into deep conversations, which I really enjoy and love. So what about not worrying about the bar presence bit and focusing in on I get these amazing conversations? That makes sense? I want to use some other examples to explore this further because that's just the tip of the iceberg. I started a job, I was at Experian 10 years ago. I started a job in their shared service centre, just brand new into that company. It's a massive company over in Nottingham. And we were working on all sorts of different projects. The official role was project accountant. That sounds really dull. It's basically a project manager role, and I really enjoyed it. It was a good fit. I had to go into meeting after meeting after meeting every week. We had weekly updates. And I'd go, these are the things you said you were doing last week. Have you got on? These are the things you're committing to do now. Is that going to help us go forwards? That all sounds really dull, right? But I enjoy the stuff that's behind it. The approach 10 years ago was, here's your notepad, here's your pen, in you go write out the keynotes, come out, type it up. Oh, except you've got another meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting, and probably some lunch, and you probably need to catch up with someone. And so the next day, you'd sit down to write these things up. But maybe it's actually the day after. So you've got a day or 2 day delay. At that point, I get out my notes, I look at them and go, I have no idea what they say. And that's because I'm dyslexic. It's something I didn't talk about until about 2 years ago. So 10 years ago, they had no idea. My new boss in my new company did not know. It affects my writing speed, so I write slowly if it's legible, but it's sort of painful and awkward. If I write kind of quickly, I can't read it, let alone anyone else. That would be fine if my memory was great, because I just remember what they said. My memory is shocking. So as a result of the two, I'm there looking at these notes going, I don't know what to put. I'm going to put some things, but actually I'm delaying. I'm putting off writing the notes up because I find it awkward, which means everyone's getting them late and they're not very accurate. What the hell am I going to do? What I think most people do in this scenario, actually, I'll come to that. I could go and get memory training. I could go and do some work on my handwriting. Okay, plenty of courses. I could go and ask for things. I could go and put time and effort in. And what I'm going to suggest is that most people do this. Not in that scenario, but the thing they find difficult all week, they go, I'm going to go and get some training. I'm going to get better at it. Okay. What I did is totally look at it differently. I said, what is the most efficient way of me solving this problem? The most efficient way of me solving this problem is to take my laptop in. My laptop had a battery, ready for it. It could last for 2.5 hours. Ooh. Okay, but it could last 2.5 hours unplugged. I could always take a charger in, sit near the wall. It'll be okay. I could type about 50 words per minute. I did a little test with the kids the other day, 70, nailing it. But I can't sustain that. But I can type 50 words a minute, so I can capture what people are saying. Here's the real win. I would do that live in the session. We'd get to the end of the session. I'd chuck up an email. I'd put in who it's to and CC and all the other people that needed to know about it. And we'd be like, are we done? We're finished? Yeah, good. Bang, sent. I don't have all that awkward write-up. Everyone gets it immediately, and then instead of 24, 48 hours later, and I've saved myself hours. I was very good at that job. I went to my boss and went, I actually have 3 hours spare in a week. I'm coming in on time, I'm leaving on time, and I have 3 hours spare. What do you want me to do? Can you do this stuff? The stuff I went on to do really benefited my career and really helped me move forwards. By the time I left 10 years later, not that role, but just experience, 6 years later, sorry, everyone used their laptop. Everyone went in and typed things up because it's just the most efficient way of doing it. Some people would still write the odd note down, that's fine. Just because other people do that, just because other people focus in on their weaknesses and how they develop it, we need to step back and say, but how can I do this? How can I lean on the strength side of my coin? Because it's that side that I'm going to make all the difference. And for me, that was an absolute game changer in that job. That makes sense? So my first major encouragement in this reframe is to lean in on the strengths. What makes you special? Use that. If you've got a quirky brain, use that. If you hyper-focus sometimes and are all over the place other times, maybe a bit of ADHD in there, use that. When you're in that hyper-focus, change the world. When you're not, accept it. It's okay, all right? That makes sense? So that's the first thing. Lean into our strengths. Pick that strength side of the coin and lean in. This is why I like the coin. But what stops us doing that? There's a massive thing that gets in our way, all right? And it's like my brother with the running club going, you're not a runner. What pulls us back and makes us focus in on the weakness side, weakness side of our coin? A few things. First off, there's a bit of evolution in there. A bit hard to get rid of this one, I'm afraid, but let's recognize it exists. A long time ago, early human was in a cave, and there was a noise at the back of the cave, and the early humans that went, wow, that sounds brilliant, let's go check that out, died. The ones that went, oh my goodness, I'm really scared, even though it was a tiny little rat and it would have been fine anyway, they went somewhere else and survived. Similarly, the lot that went, oh, that's a cool looking new mushroom, oh, should we try it? Maybe we'll try it with that funky new berry too, yum, yum, dead. Those genes didn't survive, we don't get that. What we got is the risk averse, got to be careful, got to be cautious, let's look after ourselves, oh, I'm not sure. That's ingrained into us. And then we go through an education system which goes, what do you struggled with that? You only got 6 out of 8 out of that. Well, this is what you need to do better. Oh, Pete, well, that's not good enough. If you did this, it would be slightly better. Even if they don't say they're not good enough bit, and they just say, this is what makes it better. What we pick up all the time is, I've not managed to do that. I've not managed to do that. We are getting shoved over time constantly about our weaknesses. And then we come out into adult life and somehow magically are meant to be like, I can let go of all that. I don't have to worry about it. It's all okay. I love doing this exercise where we look at strengths and weaknesses and we just plot them out. And what's really fun to do is if you have a group of people or a few people who know each other really well, I have done this as a couple, with a couple once. I don't normally do that because it's normally a work thing. But you actually list out what your strengths and your weaknesses are and what the strengths and the weaknesses are of the other person. Really fascinating. Do be careful when you do this. You fold over both and you swap. And then what happens? You, one by one, you open up the two and you compare. Now, this important thing to compare here is not these specific words, but the meaning behind the words. That's really important. The fascinating thing, every single time I've done this, in fact, bar one, everyone jumps to the weaknesses. Oh, what did they say I can't do? Who cares? What did they say you're amazing at? What did they say? You're the person that I want to come and see when I have that problem. You're the one that I know can solve it. You're the one that will set me on fire and you'll make me excited about finding that solution and helping me out. Yeah, okay, we should be aware of what our weaknesses are, but we always lean there first, and it's really fascinating about how that drives us. So again, encouragement. We need to actively choose to lean in. We've got to pick which side of the coin that we're focusing in on. Does that make sense? Okay. Right, how do we do that? Principally, we need to find peace with our weaknesses. We need to find peace with our weaknesses. I said my memory is shocking. I'm afraid it is. I do things to help that, of course. But I was seeing a good friend of mine. In fact, when I was at university down the South Coast, I spent loads of my time around his house. And so I knew he lived with his parents. So I knew his parents pretty well. Fast forward to 2020 and 2021, and one of his parents passed away. And so I was talking to him, and it wasn't long after they passed away, and I was very sad and sorry to hear that. And we meet up every year now as families and interact and play and have fun. We get on really, really well. And I'm very sorry to hear that. And we talked, and we actually had a lovely day. And then I didn't see him again for a year. We met up with him a year later, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And we're talking about all this sort of stuff. And I said, and we got on to Christmas. And I said, Christmas must have been really hard. Must have been really hard because of the loss of your... I can't remember. This is someone, I know both of the people. I care greatly about him. How can I not remember? But I don't. What am I going to do? I mean, I can't, I'm so far into this conversation, I can't now swerve it. I can't say, parent. I mean, I just said, look, mate, I'm really, really sorry. This is nothing to reflect on how important you are to me. I'm really, really sorry. I just don't remember. I haven't spoken to you about this. I have dyslexia. I'm now being more open about the fact that I do. I struggle with memory. What I should have done at the time when you told me is get my phone out and write it into your contact on my phone. But actually, I thought that would be rude, so I didn't. It's not an excuse. I'm just explaining how I've got into this place. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, Mike, don't worry about it. I wouldn't expect you to know. I don't expect you to remember. Why would I? Our friendship is not defined on my memory. Our friendship is not defined on my weakness, but it's defined by all the strength that I bring and that he brings and the compatibility of it. Does that make sense? And it's at that moment I gave myself permission to let go. I said, that's fine. If he is at peace with it, I need to be at peace with this. I went to an event called Atomicon with people like Pete. We're on there. Some of the work I do is through some guys who run that event, which meant about 40 to 60 of my clients were in person there. And these are people that I've spent potentially not very long with. So maybe like 3 hours online in small groups with. And I'm seeing loads of people with no name badges. I mean, Zoom is my friend because it says their name and I know who's coming in advance. These two things really help me out. So I meet these people and we're talking and someone's waving at me. It's Mike. And I'm like, I know them, but I don't know them. And we get so, I asked a few people, do you remember? What, her? No, don't do that. and the answer was no. And you're like, oh, crumbs. So I had this lovely conversation. Funnily enough, I'll never forget her name now, will I? I had this lovely conversation with her. And I'm like, I've got something that'll really help you. Let me message it to you. Why did I say that? So in that very moment, I'm like, I don't remember your name. But do you know what I did before? Before, I did an Instagram story that said, I struggle with names. And I know I'm going to see a whole bunch of people that I really like, I like spending time with. I struggle with names. Please don't be offended if I forget your name, because it's not a reflection of how much I do or don't care about you. That's how it can be perceived, but it isn't. And I said, look, I'm really sorry. And they went, yes, fine, don't worry. Don't expect it. And do you know what? When I said I'm sorry, I meant I am sorry, but already I'd forgiven myself. I had already moved on in my own head about, does it matter? That's where we need to get to with our weaknesses. Don't file them down. Don't spend hours trying to sort them. We need to be able to let ourselves find that level of peace with our weakness. That makes sense? Which brings us back to the coin. It brings us back to the coin because it says, which side are you looking at? When you get knocked, when my brother's called not a runner, how much time does he then dwell on someone said something really nasty about me and that's got me down? Because actually I'm not great at running 5 miles. No, because you run 60. It's a different technique. It's a different skill. You're literally, everything you're doing is designed for something different. How quickly can you flick back to your strengths? That's the big challenge. But that's the thing that will make the world of difference, okay? So there's 2 things going on here. One, there's how other people are attacking us and how we respond to that. And then there's a worse one than that, I'm afraid. It's how we attack ourselves and how we respond to that. I've got another analogy that's hopefully going to help sort of pour this one out. And this is, ta-da, something. Anyone know what this might be? I want to take a guess? The sun, yay. It's meant to be the sun. Would you know if it's the sun compared to any other sort of star? I can't even say if it's a picture or an artistic impression. I'm afraid I don't know. But it looks really cool. For the purposes of this, it's the sun. Oh, slight warning, physics lesson inbound. I'm going to do a really light physics lesson, okay? Don't worry. I know this might be a little uncomfortable, but it's going to be all right. It's going to be fine. Okay. How does the sun compare to other stars? So the sun is looking out, okay? For us, the night sky, but obviously for the sun, it's just looking out. And it's looking out, and it's like, wow, there's all these different stars. How does it compare? Well, some astrophysicists, because they like to do this sort of stuff, investigated. They said, what if we actually chart out what all these different stars look like? Do they form some sort of pattern? And they do. So let me explain, just so we know what we're looking at. We've got I'm going to do this twice so that people in different spaces can see. Okay, so vertically, we've got how bright the star is, okay? How bright is going up this way. We have the color of the star along the bottom. So the color is actually the surface temperature of it. That's the real thing that makes the color, but the color. So blue over this side, red over this side. And then we've got these diagonal lines going this way, across. And that's the mass of the star. If you like, it's the size. Physicists would get upset with me for that. It's the mass. But we could think of it as the size. So that is brightness this way. That is color or surface temperature this way. And that is these diagonals are mass. And what we discover, amazingly, about stars is they fit this kind of, it looks like a Z to me, but it's a reverse Z, isn't it? It's like a backwards Z. They fit this reverse Z. I won't bore you with how you get up here or how you get down here, but it's specific to certain types of stars and where they are in their life cycle, which really means that most stars are in this space here, okay? And then we say, well, where's the sun? Spoiler, if you wanted to find it already and you haven't, it is marked on there. If you haven't already found it, color is by far the best way of finding the sun. It's not blue and it's not red. So that tells you instantly roughly where it is. It's there, nice and in here. So here's the sun. And what I love about this is when we look and say, how does the sun compare to other stars? If the sun was like, how do I compare to others? Where am I at? It says, well, I'm kind of in the middle, aren't I? I'm kind of in the middle on color. I'm kind of in the middle on brightness, and I'm kind of in the middle on size. I really can't stand anywhere great for this, can I? I might stay. I'll stay over here. Is that okay? What do we call something in the middle? Average. We call it average. Statistically, definitely, this is an average star. Okay, so what happens to us? We're the sun, by the way. Every single one of us is the sun. What happens to us is we look out. I'm going to reference Tomicon and Pete again, because he came over from Nottingham. I'm going to give him some credit, okay? We met Christo, didn't we?
We did.
Any Christo fans in here? Maybe not. Yeah, okay. So we and it's easy. So Christo's this massive star, okay? He is huge and he is super bright. And he's a lovely guy as well, so that's great. It's easy for us to look at someone like him and go, I wish I was more like him. I wish I had that kind of audience. I wish I had that kind of reach. I wish I had that kind of impact. That makes sense? And that's like our sun going, I want to be Betelgeuse. Because Betelgeuse, bright star, Orion constellation. It's an amazing place, right? That's so big, and it's so bright, and it's a much cooler color. I wish I was more red than yellow, and sort of yellowy orange. Oh, or maybe I could be like a blue color. That would be cool too. What it misses is this little dot, as far as it's concerned. This little dot that's going around it. It'll always be lit up. This little dot, just constantly going around. That's the Earth, okay? We're all on that, obviously. From the Earth's perspective, from your perspective here, how important is the sun? It's like the most important thing we have. Without the sun, we literally wouldn't exist. Without the sun being exactly as it is, we wouldn't exist. We have a stable star. It has been around for Earth's been around for like 6 billion years, and that's how long it's taken for us to get here. When we stop and think about it, we've moved so far in 100 years. I used to chat with my granddad about this, and he'd talk about not having a fridge. Can you imagine not having a fridge? Okay, and not having running hot water that you can't just make a bath. So if anyone has had a shower or a bath this morning and had some cereal with cold milk or oat milk or anything like that, you just couldn't do that. We've moved so far in 100 years, but this has taken 6 billion years to get to this point. Incredible, all right? For us, the sun is super special, but the sun might not think it. That's why you're the sun. You need to think about the earth that's going around you and all the people on the earth that's going around you. The people you might not even know. You might not be able to see. I'm not convinced the sun, if you could stand on the sun, I'm not entirely convinced you could see the earth. But if you could, it will just be a little dot and it'll just be moving very slowly, okay? How do you even know that people are there? But for them, you are the most important thing. You are the thing that can solve the pain point they're in, the problem they're in. And so we've got to get out of our own way. We've got to stop feeling negative about what we can't do. I wish I was more like that. I wish I could do these things. And start feeling bigger about, no, but this is what makes me special. This is where I'm amazing. Got to lean into that strength. And we do that by finding peace with our weakness. Does that make sense? So the key here, and it's on the card, this is why the coin and the sun are on the card as reminders. I'd like to think there's something you could take and put in your studio. You could pin them under your computer screen. You could pin them on a noteboard at work, whatever it is. You'd have them to remind you that you are so very special, okay? You need to make that count. And you do that by being more you. Be more you, okay? You can always think of your coin. It's a gift. That is your coin. I don't think you can buy anything here for 10p, but maybe you could club together and buy something like a pack of crisps and then have a crisp each or something. So what does all that mean for endurance? How do we get clear? We talked about pace. We talked about having proactive rest. But then we've really dug into this idea of that resilience, that bounce back. Because if we can bounce straight back again, we don't need to persevere. We can just go where we're going. We just keep going. It's a much more effortless way of continuing. And that's what we want. Endurance, to me, is hard work. But actually, really, it's just about getting to a positive end point and being able to ride the storms as they come. We all know about storms because we've all made it here today. So well done for that one. And by dialing in on those strengths and letting go and being at peace with the weaknesses, we don't have to push hard uphill. We just bounce back, we spring back, and we move on. And that is what I would wish for everyone in this room and anyone listening and watching this. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you found that useful, at least in some way challenging and a new angle on it. And I think, have we got time for Q&A? Yeah, definitely. So we can do some Q&A if anyone has any questions.